Well, good morning, everyone. This is Todd, co-founder IRIS-AsteronX. Today, we're going to talk about the RDE, plasma sheath, and somewhat of MHD. How is everyone? We're doing great. What is an RDE? I'm glad you asked. RDE stands for Rotating Detonation Engine. For in-space operation, Rotating Detonation Engine. Now you can tell this is not scripted. Rotating Detonation Rocket Engine, or in the case of this vehicle in the background, Rotating Detonation Spacecraft Engine. That's my own little take on it. A rotating detonation engine is just what that says. It's a detonation that's rotating. I'll explain. Deep inside, in the very, very back of this, is an injector. It injects fuel and oxidizer. Somewhere along in this combustion chamber, this spherical can-shaped combustion chamber, is an igniter. And there's different ways to ignite. It ignites the air-fuel ratio, and bam! It's a detonation, not a deflagration. A detonation is a supersonic detonation, whereas a deflagration is subsonic. So what happens if we remove this outer casing? You can see the inner wall of the combustion chamber. Yeah, this is not nuclear, this is chemical. So the detonation wave expands around the cylinder at supersonic speeds. They have, with research, I think they have achieved Mach 11, for sure Mach 9. The detonation engine, what makes this detonation engine so special is that I've lost the housing. There we go. What makes this so special is that there's no moving parts and it's already supersonic, which means you can mount it to something like the spacecraft or the saucer. The detonation engine typically is fueled by hydrogen, and when it's in air breathing, meaning in atmosphere, it uses the oxygen of the air. When in space, the main difference between the rocket or spacecraft version is that you carry the oxidizer with you, aka oxygen. Now, there are other fuels that they're experimenting with. And you know, these engines might just be perfect for drones. The smallest one I've seen yet was the size of a 150 milliliter jar. The main limitation to this engine is they're extremely loud. Well, of course, you know, supersonic exhaust. That's the detonation engine. If you have any questions about it, feel free to leave your questions in the comments below. Let's move on to the plasma sheath. This is a spacecraft that I've been working on, Aerospacecraft. It's mostly intended for in-space operations. it can land. And this is not a complete model by any means. How does the plasma sheath work, and how do you generate it? Great question. Right here is an emitter array, ultra high-powered lasers, and high-voltage discharge units. And what they do, is that they spray out enough energy to ionize the air that the ship is running into. And what that means is when you ionize the air, you're stripping off the electrons from the nucleus. So now that you have positive and negative charges. And why that's important is because the air becomes electrically active, meaning you can take magnetic fields, such as that's what these here represent. These yellow lines, that represents the coils. There's both an electric current. I don't mean just an electric field. I mean electric current and a magnetic current. And when you get them perpendicular, that creates the Lorentz force. It's the Lorentz force which will grab onto the electrically conductive atmosphere. And if you time it just so, you can pull on that plasma and drag it over and around your craft. That's what you're seeing right here. That's what this represents. So out here at the very tip is where the plasma is generated. Within the nose of the craft, and maybe even further back, depends on how you want to do it, you generate the Lorentz force. In France, it's known as the Laplace force. The Lorentz force pulls on that, and you can even deflect it around your ship. And so in lab testing, they have been able to achieve a 37 to 40% reduction in overall drag. Because normally the air molecules passing by the hull of the ship would electromagnetically interact with the hull and create drag. The plasma sheath, anything within the plasma sheath is actually more like a slight vacuum. Or here's another analogy that's kind of sort of produces the similar effect. And that is, really vague and ambiguous there, huh? If the ice on the road between your tires and the road is a kind of good analogy how a plasma sheath can act around the hull of a ship. So this plasma sheath is acting kind of sort of like the ice between the tire and the road. And it allows your ship to fly in a slight vacuum. And I say a slight vacuum because just like the air within a hot air balloon, it's less dense. There's less air to run into. And therefore, it's a partial vacuum. And therefore, you have buoyancy in a hot air balloon. And so the balloon rises. And then you have air molecules, which are at a higher energy state. So when you impart energy to air, it accelerates, it shoots off, trying to seek a higher level of altitude, because the lower dense air is going to resist the heat. The hot air molecules are going to seek to escape the lower density. So it's kind of like pouring water on the ground. The ground is denser than the water, and of course, the water is denser than the air, and so air seeks to get on top of water. So the ground is denser than the water. You pour the water on the ground. It just seeks to sit on top of the ground. And if you could pour air on top of the water, it would seek to sit on top of the water. And by the way, space is still a medium. So when you get into space, it's not an actual vacuum. So the ground, you could look at it as made of denser, coarser material. Water is a medium. It's less dense than the ground. Air is a medium. It's less dense than the water. And space is a medium. It's less dense than air. So we don't actually truly live outside the fishbowl, so to speak. Fish live in a medium, water. So, okay, so as I was saying, and I had to stop the recording because there was some loud noises going on out there. Okay, so I hope that answers any questions you might have with regards to the plasma sheath. If you want to ionize the air, you have to bombard it with high energy. And then, like water in a pan, if you want to electrolyze the water, if you want to break it down to hydrogen and oxygen, you could take your battery cables and dunk it straight into the pan of water. Non-metal pan of water. And it won't do anything because water is not conductive enough. I don't suggest that you do this at home. If you throw in a salt shaker of salt and just mix it in thoroughly, and then you hit your battery cables on there, your battery will explode in your face. Don't do that at home. It's because the water suddenly becomes electrically conductive. Well, you can do the same thing with air. If you emit cesium into the air in front of the craft or around the craft, you can better ionize. You make the air more conductive, and you can better ionize the atmosphere. Now, this has been tested. It works. It's utilized in certain areas of the world, and yeah, that's how it works. Now, the saucer and the MHD. It's no different than the craft I just showed you, except for one thing. Well, no, I take that back. It's the same for this too. The main thing with the saucer is that you use the MHD to create a supersonic airflow over the top of the craft. You grab the ionized air with the MHD, you drag it down and over the surface. The moment you reduce the atmospheric pressure above the craft, you be having flying. Yes, very good English. You be having flying area. So the point is to create the supersonic airflow over the surface. Imagine this is a wing. If you were to go at supersonic speeds, you would have a greater lift. Well, instead of this being just a wing that accelerates the air over the top and creates a low pressure at the top whilst maintaining a higher pressure at the bottom, but it's a wing is fixed to one directional. The saucer is a circular wing. Look at it as a circular wing. You could say this is kind of like a wing profile from the side, but from the top, it's a circular wing. And instead of moving forward and being bound to moving in one direction, if you create the flow from above the saucer, bring it down and shove it off, now this can hover as though it has anti-gravity. You can assist that with rotating detonation engines at supersonic airflow. Yes, you can use the detonation engines for that as well. So the saucer creates the largest surface area to create the maximum lift. That's why a saucer works so well. That's why it lends itself so well to an MHD system. You can do one better. If in this cavity, all the way around this ship, let's say that this was a series of faceted engines, detonation engines, linear detonation engines. These are rotating detonation engines, but a linear detonation engine is just what I said. And it doesn't have to be just a straight hollow tube. I've seen truncated ones. Truncated, what is truncated? Well, let's throw in a cube here and illustrate this. If I pull this cube out and widen it, there. Now imagine that deep within the saucer, and let's go ahead and fit it into place. Instead of just speaking it, let's go ahead and show you what I mean. So if you had faceted all the way around the saucer, well, yeah, let's get ahead and add a little bit of detail. I like to do this. Okay, here we go. Now, if we take this and imagine for a moment, oops. Imagine for the moment, helps to hit the right keys. And I will get there. Yeah, I know you already got it, but hey, let's have a little fun with it. Do you see where I'm going with this? Okay. Each one of these is a linear detonation engine. A linear detonation engine is essentially a tube where you detonate the combustion, the air-fuel ratio, I mean. It leaves the straight tube. You're going to find this mostly if you were to search detonation engine on YouTube or on the internet. What you're going to find is something like this, a tube. And they'll have a round bit on one side here, typically, and that's perfectly legitimate. It'll be something like this. And within the tube, You'll have a chamber. They tend to be a U-shaped. That's going to be a little more difficult right now, so we're going to stick with this. Once you detonate the air fuel where the chamber is, not shown here, that detonation wave expands at supersonic speeds. The long tube helps to keep it straight. It helps to increase. It's kind of like the barrel of a gun, where it helps to make the bullet fly along faster. Well, that's in essence, and that's not the best description. I will have to do a linear detonation engine, but I know there's video. I'd have to do a linear detonation engine video, but I know there's videos on YouTube that already do an excellent job of it. But imagine for a moment that each one of these are linear detonation engines. And then you have all these that go all the way around the craft. They can be your form of locomotion in any direction you want. That would be your basic entry-level saucer. Let me know how this is. Do you want me to break it down more still? Do you want me to explain this craft? Let's give you a little peek inside. It's a craft in the progress of being more realistic. These detonation engines have a very high specific impulse. This vehicle is an Aerospacecraft. It's mostly intended for space operations. So you would dock with a mothership. You would use that to go down to most likely airless world. You can come down to the Earth. The blue tank is the oxidizer, oxygen. The red tank in the back is hydrogen, whether that's liquid or otherwise. This craft, typically a rocket, requires that you burn all of the booster and all of the main rocket fuel itself in order to get to LEO. And so what makes this different is that this detonation engine, plus, might as well show you here, nuclear engines, will very easily allow this ship to get into space. And you'll have enough fuel to return and land. Then you have to refuel. The benefit to this ship is the MHD, which we talked about. That reduces the drag, increasing the efficiency, compensating for the fact that you have to carry your oxidizer. But even better, these engines on this Aerospacecraft can shift gears, so to speak. And what I mean by that is they're air breathing while it's in an atmosphere up to like maybe 40 kilometers, and then can shift gears and switch over to the onboard oxidizer. So we've crunched the numbers, and we know that we can go from the surface to space and to the surface again. Or, better still, from the docked ship, or even a dock station, to the surface of the Earth and back to the station or the mothership. And then the mothership can take off and, say, go to Mars or go to Ares or go to Jupiter, where there is an awaiting shipyard, etc., etc. The The saucer can act as an aerospacecraft and do the same thing. So, this is the beginning. I'm going to be a little rough around the edges and probably think later on, oh, wow, I could have done it even better, especially as I listen to the videos I create. On that note, I ask again, let me know what you think. This is not scripted. What kind of information do you want? Do you want me to take it further? Etc., etc., etc. And on that note, you know what I'm going to say. Keep wondering about space. Thank you. Take care. Cheers.